The land is what sustains us. This is home to me. It's a part of us.
You really cannot separate the land and the people of Florida and how important that is, whether it's the coastal dune lakes or that we've got this beautiful white quartz sand that migrated down from the Appalachian Mountains thousands of years ago that is so unique.
Each community has a sense of pride and a sense of purpose and place in the county's history. We have a responsibility to tell the story of the past generations to future generations of Walton County.
I'd say Walton County is still one of the hidden treasures of America.
Walton County is named after George Walton, Jr. His father was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, George Walton. And his son, when he came to Florida in 1821 as the Secretary of West Florida and then acting governor, well, 1824 came along and he decided to also name a county after himself. Now, the first county seat of Walton County was Alaqua, which started in around 1827. Around 1833, Uchiana was the county seat, and then they had a fire there, and then it moved to Defuniak.
In the 1830s, 1840s, the Point Washington, Freeport, and Portland areas were important because there were large ships under the British flag at that time being built in these areas. Those ships were consequently used in the lumber and turpentine industries.
This Captain Fritz was the main boat that came in here. It also went up to Ebro, and it's actually sunk above the bridge at Ebro, still there today.
Walton County has the highest elevation in Florida, and that's at Britton Hill up near Paxton. The highest point in Florida is actually the lowest high in the United States.
The Indian chief for the Uchi Indians, which was the ones that occupied this county, from the beginning met some white folks at a trading post in Pensacola and invited them to this county. Basically, good relationships always existed. Chief Story from here was the last chief that we had living down this area. Now, he actually learned English, spoke it well, named his children English names, and this, I think, is an unusual kind of relationship that Walton County had with its Native American.
Well, in the 1860, when we first came in here, that was just a matter of being able to homestead and survive. By the time the Walton County lumber was here, we were doing cypress farming, well, cypress harvesting, and they would cut the trees and one would ride the tree down into the river. In fact, one of my great-great-uncles died that way because it was a hollow tree. But they would band them together and then ride them downriver to the sawmills that were maybe over in Freeport or Pensacola. We were turpentining people. We know the rivers. We were your ferry boat operators, and we've been a part of the growth of this county for generations, 5 generations now. When the turpentining played out, which would have been in the 30s and 40s, we went to a different occupation. We grew corn and transported beverages into Alabama. We made liquor and sent it up to Alabama because that was what we were bootleggers, because we had to trade our industry. But we did it as a community. It was a community industry. All of what we did as a whole of people.
In the late 1800s and early 1900s, of course, the steam engine was all we had coming through here. And it had to replenish its boilers every now and then, of course, putting out all that steam. And Mossy Head had access to a lot of water, and we here knew it always was the place that the train would stop. And some people even met the train in Mossy Head. You know, in those days, you could actually mail a letter on the side of the train. I lived 6 miles from town on a farm, and I could lay in my bed and hear the train come through town. I could hear the whistles, I could hear the rumble of the steam engine. I could even hear the shush of the steam as it stopped.
Freeport was a big lumber operation over there. Turpentine, naval stores, you know, that's about all there was. They had steamboats that came from Pensacola to Point Washington, and they would load up lumber and take it to Pensacola and ship it out on these big schooners all over the world, that virgin pine timber.
If it hadn't have been for the lumber industry, timber industry, and the turpentine industry, there wouldn't have been a Paxton. There wouldn't have been a Florella. There wouldn't have been a Defuniak Springs, I'm sure, because all these different industries, they made employment for people that they didn't normally have, and it kind of fostered a better type of living than what they were used to.
My dad, who was born in 1888, and I heard him tell many times about their trips to the coast down to the south part of the county, and it would be a 2-week trip that was done for the process of cooking salt out of the water to supply their salt for the rest of the year. It was a real fun type of thing, the way he told it. The kids looked forward to it, the adults even looked forward to it, because families would gather together, 4 or 5 at the time. They would make the trip down to the south part of our county on horse and wagons, of course, carrying wash pots and various things they were going to use to cook the salt down. And so these were hard things, and today to say we have to cook our salt out of the water, it sounds like such a hard job, and yet when he told it to me, it was a lot of fun for everybody.
Oh, we went to the beach. We went as a family. The family would have lunch, spend the day down there, swim in the water. Really, some of my kids learned how to swim in the Gulf. That's the water they learned how to swim in. I was on the beach every summer, I know that.
My grandfather was a very visionary man. He was W.H. Butler. He moved from New York State to South Dakota and was wheat farming up there, and he got tired of the cold. In 1907, he came to Defuniak Springs on an excursion train from Chicago that was coming to the Chautauqua and Defuniak. He had intended to go to Pensacola, and he got to Defuniak and got off the train there. Thought it was a great place and wound up buying a farm there right where I-10 and 331 cross. Along about 1915, he got interested in South Walton. He got somebody to bring him down here to look at the place, and at that time the only people here were some that were either fishing or raising cows on free range. He first went to, they call Camp Helen, Lake Powell, Inlet Beach, and bought a half interest in that property there on that lake with R.E. McCaskill. Meantime, someone brought him to Grayton, and he liked it better, so he traded out his interest to McCaskill. Grayton was laid out as a beach community in 1890. It was laid out somewhat like a New England village, rather than just a strip like a lot of the communities were. When he bought the land or traded for it, there were only 4 or 5 lots had been sold out of it. He started trying to figure out how to sell the lots, and he eventually wound up building a big old frame hotel and trying to get people to vacation here. Really nothing much happened until they opened the Choctawhatchee Bay Bridge in 1939, and they paved the road from Panama City to Destin about 1935, and they paved the road in Grayton to Grayton in 1938, so things started happening a little bit. My dad was a school teacher and principal. When my grandfather died, he inherited the property, and then that's when he started trying to sell lots. And I can remember when he was trying to sell lots for $50, and he sold one on the lake over here, traded it out in candy. He built that store, and the guy that was furnishing the candy traded out $50 worth of candy and bought that lot.
My mother's name is Gladys Milton, who practiced as a midwife in this area for some 40 years, from 1959 to her death in 1999. I was born at home during the days when doctors were coming to your house to deliver babies there. And of course, that was during the days of segregation. That was one of the reasons why the doctor had to come, for one thing, and one of the reasons why they later recruited my mother to become one of the midwives. At the time that she was asked, they needed midwives. It was still during the days of segregation. Black women didn't have the luxury, I guess, of having somebody to take care of them. And so she went on to be trained and was eventually trained just so that she could take care primarily of black women. But by this being a small area, she took care of just about all the people, because there again, there was not the access to hospitals and doctors the way that we have them now. So it wasn't just black babies, it was white babies too. My mother realized the importance of people getting good quality care, and she realized the importance of the event that she was doing in the fact that people would remember that instant for a lifetime. So she always made it a point to try to make it special.
Defuniak has and owes its origin to a concept called the Chautauqua, because prior to that, Defuniak really didn't exist, because the railroad didn't come through this section of Florida until about 1884.
The Ellington Railroad had wanted to go from Pensacola to Jacksonville as a passenger train. And so a group met here to determine whether or not this would be a good place to put a passenger station. And one of the men who met with them, Colonel Chipley, said, you know, I've been to Chautauqua, New York, and I know they're looking for a winter home.
He got in touch with them in 1884. They came down, looked at the place, liked it, and bought the property here and planned a community of Defuniak Springs.
When the railroad was being surveyed through the area, the engineers came up on this round pond in Defuniak Springs, and they said, a town shall be built. And that's where it came from. They built the homes around the circle, and Defuniak Springs was actually incorporated in 1901.
Just like so many people now that want to come and visit Florida, it's not only beautiful, but it's warm in the winter for all those northern visitors. So they would come here and not only enjoy the warmth, but they would also use that as an education opportunity. They had 4 pillars: religion, education, art, and recreation. So they spent many weeks at this course of Chautauqua.
In fact, Florida State University actually got its start here as a part of Chautauqua and the Florida Education Association. We had a small Presbyterian college here, Palmer College, for a good many years.
There was a grand Chautauqua Hall built, and they would have lectures during the day, special classes, dances and concerts at night. They might have bagpipe players playing. Someone that could really play the organ well may go to one of the churches around the lake yard and give a concert. People may not think of West Florida or this part of the South being so educated and have such deep history, but actually we were the center of education and culture.
It's just a close-knit community from North Walton to South Walton. It's just a unique place. It's still large enough to have all the needs that you need, and small enough to enjoy one another.
Walton County made it safe haven. And even today, I have tremendous support from the people in Walton County. They have stood by us, they have gone out of their way for us, they know who we are, and they believe in us. And you can't beat that for a county.
I'm a 3rd generation in Grayton and South Walton County, and I was privileged to grow up here because it's so beautiful and because there was so much to do.
We're known for our beautiful beaches, but we're also known for our farming too, and our love of this community and how we come together. This is my home. This is where I'm from, and my roots will always be here. My love and my devotion will always be to this place, and it is what it is. Different places have different things that are unique about them, and Walton County is certainly unique.
Walton County is a very special place. It's been important to focus and highlight those historic achievements of our forefathers and people in this county that have worked hard, and I think we have a responsibility to tell the story of the past generations to future generations of Walton County.